In this video, we will review chapters 4, 5, and 6. When we talk about the different parts of language, language itself is just a body of symbols. And normally it's words. And the systems that you use to communicate messages that are common to people in the same speech community. Lexicon is just a collection of words and expressions, and phonology are the sounds that you use to produce those words. Syntax and grammar, those are the rules that you use to take those words and put them into sentences. Dialect is a unique form of a language, and it can be spoken by a specific group of people, a culture, or co-culture. This is not to be confused with dialectic that we talk about in chapters 7 and 8. A language community. So this refers to all people who speak or understand a particular language. So think about the English language. That's our language community. Other people that are in this language community are Canadians, Australians, South Africans, people in England, Great Britain. But a speech community is a smaller group that speak a common dialect. So while I mentioned all those countries that speak English, our speech community is, American English. And we can understand Canadians better than we can understand people from Great Britain because some of our phrasing is more similar, our pronunciation is a little bit more similar. And finally, an idiolect. This is just your own personal symbol system. And that includes your active vocabulary and any unique pronunciations that you have, any individual ways that you have of combining words, so your grammar and your syntax. So for example, I might say that I have an Aunt Mary. You might say that you have an Aunt Mary. That refers to the idiolect. Okay. Characteristics of language. So language is arbitrary. When we think about the word for a furry companion you have around the house, the letters D-O-G, well, people decided that if you combine the letters D-O-G, that's going to mean a dog. So it's arbitrary. And language can be somewhat abstract. If I talk about a pet, for example, it could mean a German Shepherd. It could mean a cat. So some words are very abstract. And language changes over time. Think about, the word Google. It's a search engine, right? Well, it has now also become a verb. We'll just Google it. You didn't say that 10 years ago. Dialect leveling refers to when two languages kind of combine, maybe not completely, but combine some words and some phrases. To communicate effectively, you need to be very concrete in the words that you use. So for example, you can talk about an animal that you have in your house. Well, that could be anything. Do you have an elephant in your house? Do you have a fish in your house? To make it more concrete, less abstract, you could talk about a mammal. Even more concrete is a dog, and the most concrete is a poodle. Now, Canis lupus familiaris is the scientific name, and it's jargon. And you have to be careful if you're going to use jargon or slang. If you use it to communicate, you need to make sure that your audience is familiar with it. And if you use an unusual word for the first time, you need to explain it, again, so that your audience understands what you're trying to communicate. Some characteristics of nonverbal communication. First of all, communication is inevitable. Nonverbal communication is inevitable. If you're just sitting in a classroom, you are communicating something, how you are sitting, your posture, where your eyes are looking, to fellow students and to your instructor. Nonverbal communication really is the strongest conveyor of emotions, whether it's, putting your hands on your hips, if it's, a frown. Nonverbals really help you communicate what you are feeling. Nonverbal communication is multi-channeled, so it could be your tone of voice, and it could be your posture combined. And nonverbal communication can be a little ambiguous, that if someone makes a face or has their arms crossed, you may not always know exactly what they're thinking. Some types of nonverbal communication. We talk about kinesics. Kinesics is using your body to communicate. Types of kinesics, we've got gestures, different gestures that you make, illustrators that help you supplement a verbal message, adapters. These are those things where you're taking the hair away from your face, adapters that respond to some kind of a physical need. Another type of kinesics is eye contact. How much and how often you look at people. And keep in mind that eye contact is often used to signify turn-taking in a communication. Facial expression is another kinesic, another way that your body communicates. Posture, touch, and haptics, the interpretation of getting a touch or a hug. Then we have paralanguage. So paralanguage is using your voice. It could be how softly you are speaking or how loudly you are speaking, if you want to make a point. It could be the pitch that you're using, raising your voice or lowering your voice to make a point. How fast you speak, the rate, the quality, the sound of a person's voice, whether it's pleasant to the ear. Intonation, the inflection that you use in a voice. Vocalized pauses, okay. Those are all parts of paralanguage. Proxemics refers to the use of space, the interpretation of a person's use of space. Do you sit down at a table and put all your books around so that you claim this large territory? Chronemics, the way others interpret your use of time. So if you're chronically late, what does that communicate to your friends? Are you just scatterbrained and you're always late? Or you just don't respect their time? Or are you saying, hey, I want to be noticed when I walk in the room. That's why I'm always late. And then finally, physical appearance. Physical appearance says a lot about you. Whether or not you choose to, if you're a woman, whether or not you choose to wear makeup or style or color your hair. If you are a man, do you wear hats? Do you always have a hoodie on? For both men and women, do you have tattoos, for example, to make a statement? Okay, let's talk about listening and hearing from chapter 6. You know that hearing is a physical process. Listening, on the other hand, is a cognitive process. And it's the process of receiving and, evaluating, getting meaning from a message. The listening process. So there are a number of steps in the listening process. First of all, you have to pay attention and you have to select the stimuli that you're really going to focus on. You have to organize your thinking about it, understand and try to interpret what you're hearing. You try to remember. There are different tools we talked about. Remember, mnemonics is one tool to help you remember. And you evaluate what you've heard. In the understand and interpret part of the listening process, paraphrasing is important. So under paraphrasing, paraphrase just means that you put a message that you've heard into your own words to make sure that you understand it. There are two kinds of paraphrases: a content paraphrase, where it's really the denotative meaning of the message, or the exact meaning of the particular words, and a feelings paraphrase, where it's really related to the emotions attached to the message. Okay, empathy versus sympathy. What's the difference between those two? Well, empathy is intellectually identifying with the feelings or attitudes of another. Sympathy, on the other hand, is feeling concern or sorrow for somebody's situation. So rather than attempting to experience the feelings of the other, you translate what the speaker has experienced into feelings of concern or compassion. So in sympathy, you don't try to feel those same emotions, you just feel concern or compassion. And that brings us to the end of the review for chapters 4, 5, and 6.